Hello friends, welcome to my channel SushantChessWise. Today we are at the next topic and we are going to discuss about attack, means how to become a good attacker and what are the requirements, what we should look at. So we are going to discuss the topic. As you can see, it's indicator of attack. So what are the main indicators of attack? Today we will look at one of the main indicators of attack. There are a few indicators. Here we can see that black's king is in the center. So king in the center is a main indicator of attack. King in the center also implies indirectly that see our king has castled, he has not castled, means we are of course ahead in development. So these both factors come simultaneously together. If both kings are in center and both are less developed, then of course it cannot be an important indicator. Sometimes once king is in the center, it's ready to castle instantly. Opponent's king is all cut up. That time the number of developed pieces or the active pieces matter a lot. Here white already has a knight posted on e5, queen d1 which can instantly join, rook e1 which is already active. So white looks for a combination here itself, not allowing black any chance to run away by castle. So that is the first indicator, the king in the center. White makes a terrific combination here. Here we have one of the best attackers, Nesmentino is white and Kamishov is black. And we see a deadly combination which is not very violent, we must say, but the attack is built at several stages in a different way. White goes with the move knight f7, one of the most obvious moves. King takes f7, almost forced. We must note that after knight f7, if black tries to go rook g8, protecting the rook, then queen h5, using the threat of discovered check, rook g6, only way to stop that. But then we have this position, rook g6, queen h5, knight f7, and here comes knight h8, and white is winning, of course. Thus the knight has to be accepted. So king takes f7, and we must have already seen white wants queen h5 check. There are some several interesting lines. Queen h5 check, king e7 was played in the game. Let's look at kg7 and kg8. kg7 is really very odd and very bad because not only it obstructs the g7 square for the bishop, king lacks space as well. White just uses e3. The rook is transferred on g3 and it's game over. So instantly we can say it's a winning position. Also, in these kind of positions, slower ways to attack can work very well. For example, rook e6. In fact, I must show you there is another forced way of winning. qg4 check, king f7, queen e6 check, kg7, and this time rook e3. This is even more dangerous because now there is no rook g8 because of rook g3 check followed by g8 would be taken if king on h8. If king h6, then queen h3 mates. After kg8 also we have several ways. In fact, this is a very interesting position and I must share some analysis because with such poor developed pieces, white can have various ways. This we must note. It's not that there has to be a one and only forced win, otherwise the position is lost, we are pieced down. That is why if we look at this move, we realize that there is qg4 check, bishop g7, queen takes e6 check. I also like the move rook e6, very strong. Threatens re7, queen c7, then re1. Then again we see that re7 is almost unstoppable. So this may also win. But queen e6 check, king f8, queen d6 check, kg8, and I like this the most, rook e7. It's game over. See, there are no defenses to various threats. One threat is queen e6, queen f7 mate, rook f8 fails to that, bf8 fails to just queen e6. Only move queen b6 controlling e6, but then the d5 square loses control. And next move queen f7 would be made. So we see that white's attack can develop forcefully also, and he can wait and build up the attack as well. So my main point is that apart from developing the ability to see further and calculating long variations, it's very important to develop the feel of the position. We must understand that of course there is compensation and we need not fear sacrificing material here. As in the game, black played ke7, white just builds the attack, cd5. Rook e6 is a massive threat. King is heading to d7. So black tries to keep the center closed. e5. White never gives him any time. Here d6 check is very interesting. d6, kd6 allows queen f7. White goes for f4, very strong. Now fe is a massive threat. After bg7, we must note here that d6, kd6. Now the queen is entering f7. King e6 also allows queen g4 or f5 check. Both are winning on the spot. So this we can make out that position has already collapsed. So black eliminates the d5 pawn. Queen takes d5. F takes e5. Of course, fe loses to rook e5. So f5. Now also white has many ways. There is ra d1. There is queen g5 check followed by queen f6. But white chooses the stronger e6. Not allowing the queen to retreat. And now the threat is queen f7 check, kd8, perhaps rd1, or e7 check, or queen f6 check. This was my point. There is not just one way to win. There are several ways. Black plays kf6. Again here, queen f7 check, kg5, rook d1 was interesting, but white plays another strong move, h4. Two threats at once. One is qg5 mate. If rook g8, then queen f7 mate. Black tries bishop c5 check, king h1, queen takes e6, trying to continue the game for a bit longer. After say rook e6, ke6, rook e1, which is also winning, but white just sees qh6 check. As I said, multiple ways will of course exist. And here black resigns as kf7 is met by queen e6 check, qd7, and the rook joins the attack. So in this example, we not only saw some forced lines, but we saw the simplicity and ease at which white improved his position. Last time we saw one of the indicators of attack, that was king in the center. Today we have the next topic, that is the second indicator, which is breakthrough in the center or pawn break in the center. All these indicators are mainly given by none other than the greatest attacker, Mikhail Tal. So he mentions these 5 indicators of attack. Let's go to the second one. This is pawn breakthrough. Black's last move was d4, bishop e4, and the rook came to b8. White's pieces are very well placed in the center, and he wants to attack on the king side. It is said that if we want to launch attack on any side, the center should be well secured. We should have either a blocked center or the opponent should not get play in the center. Here white pieces are way more active than blacks. So white wants to play the move d5. It's very apparent that he wants to break the position. But he goes with a preliminary very strong move g5. Attacking h6 threatens h5 to open the king side fully, means it forces black to do h5 himself. See how nicely the pawns are put on the white squares before breaking the center on the square d5. The move d5 breaches the white squares now. d is almost forced. d6 is a threat. d is also possible. So he takes d5, knight d5, and here black went knight c5. Let's look at the move bb7. Looks like a good developing move, but white has qd4 check. After king h7, he exploits the position nicely by knight e7, queen e7, rook e1. After the break of center, white rooks dominate the board. It's game over. Threats are bg6 and bb7. So after be4, rook e4, we see that the d7 knight hangs. Similarly, the move kg8 is also quite worse. After same ne7, queen e7, re1, there also white is much better. Thus in the game, black plays knight c5. He wants to take this important bishop, which is eyeing the b1 h7 diagonal. So white first removes his queen from this queen's line. So queen c3 check, bringing the rook and the queen in an open position. King can go to g8 or h7. h7 was perhaps somewhat better. Still bishop c2, like in the game, is very much playable. Black went king h7. The king looks more secured on the h7 square, as there is no knight g5 or h5. But soon we will see. After the move bishop c2, white is so nicely placed here. He's all set to get his other rook to e1. Black's rooks are yet not connected, and white will break the position before black completes his development. Black played b6 in the game, but after the move bg4, white has the very simple knight e3. He will take knight g4, hg, h5 and break the position. Thus qc8 would be forced perhaps. Then also knight g4, qg4 and this time rook e1. See the seriousness of the position. Knight is jumping to e5 and then some sacrifice on f7 or g6 in the air. So this is winning for white. Black tries to keep the position as closed as possible. So he goes b6, but nevertheless white manages to force things here. Now after knight f6, bf6, rook d8 is met by bishop c3. So nf6 is not best. White wants to open the position. White spots a simple combination. Knight f4, attacking e6 and g6, forcing the queen to go away. So queen c8, keeping e6 protected. And now white goes knight takes h5. Well, white has not just gained the pawn, he is all set to get the move h5 soon, and black position collapses. Here, in fact, after the move rook g8, black played rook g8 here, defending the mate on g7. White went nf6, bishop takes f6, g takes f6. Here he chose to resign as the move ng5 and h5 both are decisive. If rook b7, then white can either go knight g5, king h6, queen e3, threatening several things amongst knight e6 and knight f7. Or after the move rook d8, white wants h5, so he can first take rook d8, queen takes d8, and then h5. There is no defense here once again, because now hg will be double checked, so gh is not possible because of the c2 bishop. Perhaps kg8 forced, but then also we see that after hg, fg, f7 check, and the rook and the queen both are eyeing the h7 square. So white wins over here. So black's decision to resign seems fair enough. We are at the third indicator, which is the assault ratio. I have discussed this topic of assault ratio before also. We know what is an assault ratio. By assault ratio, we mean the number of attackers is to number of defenders. This is what Mikhail Tal considers to be one of the major factors which decides whether the attack should be successful or not. A famous quote by Stenitz which says that a side who has lead in development is obliged to attack, otherwise he is at the risk of losing all his advantage. So going by that dictum, we must ensure that whenever we have more attackers near the king, we should try to finish off the game with a swift combination, which is what one of the greatest players in the history of chess, whose position we have got here, it is Garry Kasparov white and Mariano Mick black. We can easily see that in this position with white to play. White has three well-placed attackers near the black king. The queen is able to enter h5. With the move in white's hand, we should count it as at least 4 attackers and just one defender, which is the bishop on f6. White starts the play by transferring his pieces to the king side. Right now he plays the very simple and instructive move knight e4. Uses the pin on the d pawn, threatens knight f6, gf, queen d4 or just bishop h6 after gf. So black continues bb2. Looks like a very risky move at first because bishop is taking the pawn, but the main purpose is not to grab the pawn here. The bishop is protected from being captured and bishop still guards the g7 point. That is the main purpose. White goes with his idea knight g5. Of course, no one is bothered about the rook here because if just bishop takes a1, white will be simply happy in playing queen h5. The final piece joins the attack, h6 forced, and we see that after knight h6, several threats are there. Knight h f7, knight g f7, knight f5 check, and it's game over. And gh queen h6 followed by q h7 mates. So of course, black would have never taken ba1. Black plays queen c6 in the game. Let us look at one more move, knight e6, which looks like a decent defense, but white has the very strong knight d6. not only strong, it has some decisive threats as well. First, simplest queen h5, and look at this elegant one after bishop a1, knight df7, rook takes f7, bishop e6. When knight f7 check followed by multiple discovered attack and several things to one black. So this is a losing position for black. Black plays queen c6. The main idea is to transfer this queen, so the ratio will come little bit in black's, we can say not favor, but it will become little bit comfortable. So because after queen h5, black has the move qg6. White goes ne7, very strong, simply denying the g6 square to the queen. Queen was the defender. Queen goes to f6, and a simple combination follows. Knight takes h7. If king takes h7, then we see queen h5, queen h6 forced. When either bh6 or bf5 check g6, queen takes h6. It's a checkmate. So of course knight cannot be taken. Black plays queen h4, trying to trade the queens, which white would never do. Queen h5, g6, queen h4. It's time to resign actually, but black played one more move. He played bishop a1, and after the move nf6 check, amongst many things actually this is one of the simplest. kg7. Here actually black resigned, but queen h6, kf6, bg5 is a checkmate. So this is also one of the basic chapters. We must of course know that if number of attackers near the king are more, then the attack has to be successful. We should look for combinations then, especially at the difference of 3 attackers is 2 defenders. Today we are going to look at the fourth indicator, that is the invasion trajectories. Trajectories means the files, diagonals, white and black both squares which constitute the whole board, and we are going to discuss to penetrate through these diagonals or ranks or files. We need to sacrifice sometimes pawn, piece, and make some positional concessions as well. Today we are going to look at 2 examples, one easy one and other one is somewhat complex. Here we have already the open diagonals. In the upcoming lessons we will see how the diagonals will be cleared and opened. Today we have already got a position of an open diagonal. It was black to play here, and black played the move bishop c5, not worrying about the move qf6. See how this diagonal is weakened after the move bishop c5, but black thought that he is able to defend. After queen f6, he saw rook g8, and when white played rook d8, black thought that he is able to defend the position. But this diagonal is terribly weakened, and white saw a simple combination. Let's see what. Bishop c5, queen f6, rook g8, rook d8. See the way the diagonal has been exploited. Black had seen the move queen e7 and was counting on holding the game here, but white had seen the move queen h8. Simple, yet proves our point. Rook takes h8 forced, rook h8 checkmate. Here the diagonals were totally open, ready. All white had to do was penetrate through it. The next example is even more fascinating. White to play over here. White can play very well queen f7. After queen takes f7, rook f7, there is rook f1, king f1. When after kg6, maybe the position is just drawn. White saw some mating idea here, and we can already see that white is the attacker here, but black has managed some very nice counterplay. But white sacrifices material, plays the move h3, very strong. The point is rook takes f1. Of course, it's not a blunder. King takes f1 allows qd1 mate, but white had the idea king h2. Now h takes g4, kh4, queen h6 check, king g4, rook g7 is one major threat. Even the move qg4 can be winning. So black goes with the move g3 check, foreseeing f takes g3. Of course, qg3 blunder, queens get traded. So f takes g3, and now black plays queen e3, guarding the h6 square and also threatening qg1 checkmate. Here white repeated the position with qg4, but if we see properly, white has a forced mate in the position after the very strong rook e5. An unexpected blow. Point is that after f takes e5, g4 check, post move, king h4, white had seen the very elegant QE7. Now queen g5 forced and g3 checkmates. So here white's pieces we can see had already invaded. The mating finale was possible with the rook into e5 sacrifice, which made the entry possible for white queen. Today we will talk about the barrier. What is a barrier? Barrier is a concept which is like interference, but it acts for a longer duration. Barrier means not only using the pieces to block or occupy the squares, but from a distance they can control squares. So the opponent's pieces don't shift to the other part of the board. So that is the kind of barrier which white creates in this position. So those squares or the points become very important. Like here, if white conducts a kingside attack, we would see many a times the bishop would want to come from e4 to h7. The queen would like to get transferred to the king side by moving the f pawns. Bishop might want to, after f5, come bf6, bg7. So these are the central squares here, which are acting like a transferring place for the pieces. The concept of barrier becomes very important, which helps us identify on which squares the sacrifice can be given or the sacrifice can occur. So in this position, it was white to play. White is already ahead in development. Black's king is badly placed. White wants one more piece to attack on h7, and it's not very easy to get through. Instead, e5 will just allow de perhaps. So white first makes a point or square in this case for his piece to transfer to the king side. So he identifies the square e5 as the point of transferring for his pieces, and white starts with the sacrifice knight d5. Firstly, what this knight does, it will obstruct the b7 bishop forever perhaps. After e takes d5, we are snatching the f5 square from black's control. So there will be an f5, that is qg4 followed by qg7 mate. So king h8 forced. Now e takes d5, see attacking e7. And as soon as bd8 is played, we see white not only opened lines for himself, but also blocked black's pieces from getting towards the black king. And now a small and elegant combination finishes the game. qg4, rook g8, and simple yet strong rook e8. There is no difference to qg7 and qg8 mates. So the position is lost. So black cannot take the sacrifice on d5. In the game, black played 2d8. White doesn't stop himself at this. He goes with another sack, knight f5. Now things have gone already out of black's control. e7 and qg4, qg7 check. Both are threatened. So it's compulsory to take the knight on f5. So e takes f5, e takes f5, and now again we see black is under serious problem. Firstly, e7 is attacked, and white has a very simple threat. Let's say bd5, bd5, rook a7. Then white has the very strong rook e4. This rook lift or rook shift, as it is called, is winning instantly. There is no defense to rook h4. See, all this is possible because of the inability of the f-pawn to move. If the f-pawn moves to f5, then the g4 square or the h4 square by the bishop would have got controlled, and white's attack would have not been possible this easily. So this barrier created by f5 and d5 have put all these pieces on the queen side to forcibly remain there. For this very same reason, black couldn't play the move rook e8, because after rook e8, now just rook e4, bishop d5, then rook h4, and there is no defense to mate on h7. Black played king h8, and now simply knight takes e7. White's attack is conclusive, and black tries to save himself. Let's see. Bishop takes b2, and white goes with the very strong qh6. It's almost game over. Threat is queen f6 checkmate. So black goes knight d7, and now white finds another tactical move, knight g6. Black has somehow managed to stop the move rook e4, and there is no instant mate here, but white gains material and he enters into an endgame. See the picturesque position arising after f takes g6, then after f takes g6, in spite of being two pieces down, white is able to win by force. Rook f7 is not possible, queen e7 is not possible, and there is no other way to defend queen h7 mate. Rook f7, gf7 is simply lost. Rook e8 is threatened, and so is kg2. Black plays kg8. Now fg6 is a threat. Knight f4, idea knight h5 can be met by the move bishop f3. So white decides to trade pieces and enter into a winning endgame. He plays knight f8, queen takes f8, queen takes f8, king f8, and kg2. White is not only an exchanger, he has the better pieces, he also has an extra pawn, and converting this position is quite easy. White can play his rook to d1, pawn to c3, and break with the move a4, when he would either win the a pawn or the d6 pawn. So black chose to resign in this position, but we saw how the barrier was created. I hope you are finding these lessons useful and instructive. Do comment below. Thanks for your time.